Hello and welcome to the Business Talk podcast. I'm your host Deepak. Please join me in warmly welcoming Professor Rajeev Sharma to our podcast. Professor Rajeev Sharma, a former faculty member at the Ravi J. Matthai Centre for Educational Innovation at IIM Ahmedabad, has an illustrious career in education and psychology. He has been a visiting scholar at the University of Michigan and has extensively researched educational innovation, first generation learners, and entrepreneurial opportunities in education. Professor Sharma designed and taught at the PGP course Enterprise and Innovation in Education and contributed to management development programs for educators. He has worked on the projects for organizations like Swedish International Development Corporation Agency, Department for International Development, and India's National Literary Mission and authored the book Not by Grades Alone on innovative schools. In this episode, Professor Rajeev Sharma will provide valuable insights from his widely recognized book Not Just Grades Schools That Educate Differently. Professor Sharma, it is truly a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Deepak. I'm very happy to be here with you and look forward to our interaction on this. Tell me, how do we go ahead?
Thank you, Professor Sharma. Professor, what inspired you to write Not Just Grades? Was there a specific moment or observation that made you realize the need for such a book?
That's very interesting question, Deepak. So, as you mentioned, I was there at Ravi Matthai Center for more than 20 years. And in course of this stay, there were several activities which we undertook. One was a leadership program for school principal. And so this is we started about when we started, we didn't know what we are getting into, but gradually, I and my team of colleagues, they were all very uh, enthusiastic about because it's a new program. No management school had ever done a program for school leaders. So Vijay Chand, Niharika Vora, Professor Dikshit, all of us did a lot of research and we went to several schools around the country and we mounted the first program. It received very good response from CBSE board. It was supported by CPSE board. And every year we were doing this, then we open it up for other board also, state boards, international boards. But what we realized that all these schools had very good infrastructure, facilities, faculty, but nobody was happy. Teachers were in a lot of pressure. Students were all the time complaining. Parents were saying that they are not getting their return. And principals were all the time running from here to there to deliver. So we realized that everybody was under stress. Then you also look at the social scenario. There are lots of students were committing or trying to commit suicide. That number was increasing. There was a lot of competition. So we thought, what is the way out if these schools and they come to our and they said, yes, you are right, but they could not do anything. In the course, we realized there were some schools, so out of maybe 1,000 schools we must have come across, there were some schools which were doing things very differently. Indifferently, they were low cost schools. They were not very high paying fees like some schools have annual fee in lakhs of rupees. And they were catering to typical middle class population. Some were catering to slum children, and some were catering to other marginalized children. But when the children would pass out from the school, they will be as good as anyone else. They came from parents who never had any schooling. They were families which had a lot of abuse, physical and alcoholic abuse going on. But the schools, the way they organized themselves, were able to produce students which were truly, if we can say, competitive in any other aspect. So we started looking at these schools. We developed lots of case studies. And then we thought maybe this is an alternative way of looking at schools, which principals and school leaders should look at. And that is what uh, inspired me to write the book. And actually, there was no specific moment, but all of us were saying, my colleagues were saying, why don't we write something? And as you know, there are too many things that you don't have time. So at the end, then I realized we had more than 10 case studies which would fit into this. So we identified some of the case studies, and we also not only wrote the case studies, we also developed a framework around which these schools were working. And that's how this book came about. Then Penguin Random House was very happy. They had an arrangement with IMA, and we were able to put together. So I am really grateful to my colleagues and, of course, the institute. And I could do it. So when my career was coming to a completion, this book came out, and it gave me some satisfaction.
Very insightful. Professor, can you elaborate on the challenges you see with the current focus on grade-based performance in many schools? How does it impact children, teachers, and institutions?
Yeah, Deepak, so we need to understand that schools do not function in vacuum. They are in society, and society, community, and parents expect them to deliver something. Now, because of the current scenario on financial returns from professional status, everybody, all parents want their children to do well so that they can get into professional institution. Once that happens, schools which can deliver are more valued. So, and the grades is something which is measurable. If somebody school say I am developing all-round personality of children, it's a very amorphous. Of course, it can be measured, but it requires a lot of effort. So when this grade is on the focus, I not only see whether I got 85% or 90, I see the other guy got 2% more than me. Now that doesn't mean anything, but parents are always looking for that the child should be among the top, if not the on the top. And that puts a lot of pressure on school. So learning becomes secondary, grades become primary. And as you know, in board examination, there are lots of pre-board examination. So there's a lot of focus on examination. Nobody focuses on processes of learning, classroom processes, social situations in school, which help children to identify challenges, develop resilience. So it really impacts everybody in a very, very negative way. And many of these students after having gone to IITs or engineering college come to IIM. And we did realize that they sort of felt lost. They were the best among the best. They were selected out of 2 lakhs students, only a few thousand, but they didn't know where they are heading. And many times in second year, toward the end, they would come to us, to me or to other professors. So what do I do? What career should I do? And you will be surprised, Deepak, that many of them did not want to go to corporate sector. But having spent a huge amount of fees, which their parents must have taken loan, they had no choice. So actually, the focus on grades makes them feel that they have achieved. But the intent, really, when the schools are meant as a preparation for life, that doesn't happen. And there's also a lot of emphasis on research shows that uh, learning the subject is important, maths, English, science, everything is important. But along with that, non-cognitive skills are also very important. And non-cognitive skills are very directly linked with the happiness and well-being later in life. And there are researchers that have shown that this is happening. But schools do not have a space to develop non-cognitive skills. All the space is occupied by the cognitive skills, the subject-related skills. They find it if they participate in games, in theater, in social projects, that might appear to be waste of time. But actually, that is the real development of personality, but somehow that doesn't happen. Parents are also focused on that. So community doesn't facilitate. Earlier, all these functions used to be taken by family and community, which as we see the in society, it's evolving very fast, more self-centered, person-centered, less on community. So that's why a school which could have been a place for children to develop their self doesn't is not able to function because of the focus on grades. That's what you asked.
Why do you think privately run English medium schools dominate the educational landscape in India?
So Deepak, when you say dominate, it's a very specific aspect of looking. See what happens, English, as you know, is valued in our community. So they are able to get into places where uh, competitive tests or the English or the other test. But it's a very small number of students who go to English medium. Firstly, because of the cost. Secondly, because of their not availability. Thirdly, because of admission is also very restrictive. So I would say the Hindi medium students are as creative and as good as English mediums. But because of social situations, they don't have as many resources sometimes because their parents are not in the top income bracket, so they can't organize resources. Their books at home may not be there. The parent, father, mother also busy. So what happens? And because of the media attention and focus on English, uh, they get a better attention. So that's why. And now you see, I have met the students at IIMA, where many students who are very high performing, they would feel quite concerned that their language skills are not good. They were among the top in the class. So what happens when you go out, you speak, sometimes the employer may not appreciate that if your accent is different. And those who come from suave English medium schools, they appear, but their subject knowledge may not be all that deep. But it seemed that there is a general perception that English medium schools are good. And if you look at now, several schools in a primary level give the title of International English Medium School. I wonder if it is being taught properly. I wonder even if the teachers have the requisite skills in English to teach. But that's where the media and the what you call the conversation goes around. So it seems they are dominating. They are smaller in number, but I would say the Hindi medium children also play very dominant, but somehow it doesn't get noticed as much.
Professor Sharma, how does the pressure of cutthroat competition affect the mental health and overall development of students?
Deepak, this is a very, very critical area now. This is if you look at the newspaper reports every day, you find yesterday morning I was seeing there's a student Bits Pilani. He was found dead in his room. Uh, Children who have reached that stage of IIT and AIMS also have done that to themselves. Now, we all know about the quota, which is now they say suicide capital of India. So this is a very extreme form of happening. So the cutthroat impacts them. Now, student A or B may not be interested in engineering, maths, and whatever. They might be interested in maybe tourism, maybe design, maybe creative. But because they are forced into that, it is straight-jacketed. So they are forced into doing something which they do not want to do. Parents invest money. And I think suicide or attempt to suicide is one manifestation of this cutthroat, but there are other manifestation is ill health, unhappiness. So it really affects our society in a very, very bad way. And within, say, the next 10 to 15 years, when this generation goes out, we will see the full-blown effect in our society. And that's very, very unfortunate. And if you look at some other countries like South Korea, for instance, where competition is much high, suicide rate is highest in South Korea. Unfortunately, our country is also moving in that direction. If you look at Nordic countries, Finland and others, there's no cut-through competition, but they have some of the most creative industries, most creative people. In the happiness index, they have been rated high. In PISA, they rate very high. Whereas US and UK, they don't rate as high, but the competitiveness is very high. So children learn when they are autonomous, when they are free, when they learn something which interests them. Our system and many other systems also do it exactly the opposite. That's why it is not conducive to their mental health. It results in several mental and physical aspects which are not good for anybody's development.
Your book mentions schools that swim against the current. Could you share some examples of these innovative schools and their unique approaches?
Certainly, Deepak. So actually, I was struck by the fact that this school could exist in the same social sphere where other schools are there. So I would say that there are several of them. I will give you fake examples. So one is that of Parikrama Humanity Foundation. This is started by a woman called Shukla Bose, and she thought that we should give the same education to children who come from a poor economic background. And she doesn't say who are first generation learner. She said they are first generation school goers because learning everybody does. So their parents have been in difficult economic condition, living in slums. Many times there are physical and psychological abuses. There's alcoholism and drugs. So these children, she has 4 schools in Bangalore, and these children come from this background. And after 10 or 12 years of education, when they graduate, some of them go to college. If you look at the list of alumni, they're going to same MNCs. They do the same thing, maybe better than them. And now these schools also organize a football league for under 18, which is the only football league from the Asia which is registered by FIFA. And these children, with the help of, so they get tremendous opportunity to participate, and they don't have to pay anything. They get 3 free meals. So this woman and her team raises resources from Bangalore every year, maybe 7 to 8 crore of rupees. So with the education which they get is best. The teachers are very motivated. They may not be getting paid as other English medium schools, but they enjoy doing what they like. So everybody is liking what they are doing. And now, of course, it's more than 25 years. So many students who passed out, they come and contribute to the schools. So this is, and there are 4 schools, and she's doing very well. Another school I would like to give example is of Ralegaon Siddhi in Anna Hazare's village. So they had a regular school, and of course, they were selecting best of the best out of competition. The one day, the Anna Hazare and his team of educationists, they discussed, if we are taking the best, where are the people who are failing going? Which school does take them? So this motivated them to reserve 50% seat for children who have failed in other schools. And if any child has done any mischief and antisocial behavior, eating tobacco, smoking cigarette, or stealing something, or sometimes bringing knife and threatening something, and expelled from the school, those children were given priority in admissions. So it's exactly opposite to the other system. So 50% coming from regular background, 50% coming from so-called difficult, I won't say problematic, but difficult background. When they graduate, you cannot differentiate who was from this background. They all do as well. We have been to the school one time when there was a Guru Purnima, there was a alumni day, and we met these children who came with their families, wives and children, and they all said, had this school not been there, we would have been in jail or on the loitering on the road. So school has lots of systems which children, it's a residential school primarily, and teachers and senior students take time to help. But after 1 or 2 initial years being in a boarding school, they all enjoy school. They don't go back. So the school system said that. Another very inspiring school is Loreto Day School, Sialda, which again has only girls school. It's a day school, but 50% girls come from non-fee background. Once, when I first time went there, Sialda, as we know, it's a very crowded place. I was looking, I couldn't find the school building. So I saw a woman washing utensils on the public tap on the pavement. So I asked her, she says, that is the school. My daughter goes there. She was so full of pride in her voice. And I was surprised that her daughter could go to a convent school. And when I went there, Sister Cyril, who established this system of educating girl children, and children do lots of things. They go to village, they go to village children, they work, they develop science experiment, teaching method. They all do very well. So there are several. One school I would like to mention that it's a government school. No, located in slum again, Sarvodaya colony in Delhi, Sarvodaya Kanya Vidyalaya. 95% children are first-time school comer, and this was a problematic school. A new principal came, Mrs. Usha Mittal, and within 3 years she transformed the school. The enrollment increased, the pass percentage became 100%, and it became a sought after school. Same teachers, same infrastructure. So it's the principal, it is the leadership which counts. There are other schools also, but I think these 3 or 4 I would like to really mention that they are very exceptional in that sense.
Professor, how do these schools balance academic excellence with positive personal development despite having limited resources or capital?
Yeah, so Deepak, somehow many of us think that for a good education we require huge resources or capital. That may not be fully true. What we require is a visionary leadership who understand what is education all about. For instance, people think that without proper IT infrastructure, we can't. It's a good showpiece, but actually, information technology has almost no role in pedagogy and teaching. It's a very good resource for generating networks and getting information. But classroom, teacher is the most powerful resource. Where a teacher is creative, where a teacher is able to get access. Like this school in Thane, uh, which is the, I think, JK industry, 5,000 children. And when we had developed this case study, we met teachers. Each class has 40 children. There are 10 sections into grade 1 to 4. And each teacher had a story to tell how she had developed this particular module. There was no textbook, there was no examination, there was no lecture. But children were finding resources. This was about 10, 15 years where internet was not so easily available. And school facilitated their access to resources and allowed them to experiment and think. So education is all about thinking and creating something new. If I am not exciting, probably I am repeating whatever I am doing. And children were as inspiring and I would say creative. So all of them love coming to school. So basically, when you say that academic excellence require that we bring that spark in the class, this spark comes through the teacher, through the processes in the school, through the various system we create, which is not for controlling, but for providing autonomy and learning and freedom. And then excellence comes on its own. All children want to learn. All of us want to learn. Learning is excitement. It sparks curiosity, initiative, creativity. Once that happens, everybody can learn. And that's what John Holt and several researchers have said. Unfortunately, we think that learning is only getting grades. That's why it is becoming a counterproductive.
What specific strategies or teaching methods do these schools employ to create a healthy learning environment?
Yeah, so first of all, they're very democratic in the functioning that they allow teachers to experiment and find out new resources. They allow teachers to access resources, and many of them send their teachers to uh, outside training, outside. There is also another very critical aspect that the parents have to be taken on board because if parents do not agree with kind of pedagogy and methods, it will not work. So parents have to be constantly educated, not just in formal PTM meetings, but in terms of letting them understand what is education all about. So this is school in Thane, which I mentioned just now, when they shift, or another school in Jamnagar, Reliance School, again a very large school. When they change from textbook examination centered to creative, no textbook, project based learning, it was a huge hue and cry from parents. The principal, Mr. Sundaram, would sit in the office till late in the evening any parents could come and ask, why are you, parents would say, why are you spoiling lives of our kid? So he will tell that I am making their life, I'm not spoiling. It took some time because there was no grades to show that children have done well. And teachers were also exploring first time. Second year it was easier. But many parents came after 3 4 months and they say, when my child in grade 2 and grade 3 seems far more happier. When he or she comes, they have lots of questions to ask. Earlier they were all the time pressed with homework. There was no homework at all. So basically what happens when we create positive experience for learning, we need different format for assessment. We don't need test. This school has 23 pages of assessment booklet, which I have mentioned in my book. And each child is rated at least 3 times by different teachers in terms of initiative, in terms of cooperation, in terms of learning, in terms of creativity, and they are indicated for that. So then parents understand that this is a different way. When we are adopting different ways of teaching, we also need to think about different with assessment. And that's why the CBSE doesn't help. But the point is, until 8th grade, CBSE doesn't come in picture at all. Schools are autonomous to do whatever they want. And all these principals, they realize this. So they try to bring in uh, different pedagogy, project work, group work, taking them out, open technique. Children take charge of making presentation in the classroom in teams. So that's what they do. And that's what works.
Professor, what lessons can mainstream schools learn from these innovative institutions? Are there practices they can adapt despite their larger scale?
So, Deepak, most of these schools are very large schools. Thane school is about 5,000 plus children, and so is Jamnagar school, so is Anna Hazare, and so is, I would say, Lorto school in Sialda. So, principals can definitely adopt these practices, but what happens, most principals are busy in day to day operational work, timetable, appointment of teachers, parents' complaints, finance thing. If it is the government, there are a lot of paperwork to do. So they do not get enough time to devote to the academic development. So principal becomes a more of an administrator than an academic leader. And researchers currently prove that the most important person in the school system is the principal. A principal can make the school, principal can do this, which school not. Like I mentioned, Sarvodaya Kanya Vidyalaya in Delhi. I went to the same school after 10 years when the principal, Mrs. Mittal, had gone. It was totally different school. And they had all the excuses of not doing things. So when Mrs. Mittal came, before that it was a bad, it was not a good performing school. She changed it. So Government school, same system, same bureaucracy, but she could do it. So many government school and my colleagues and all have also uh, demonstrated that through documentation. Even teacher in a classroom can be very, very inspiring person. But sometimes what happens because of the pressure on the grades, pressure from the community, the principal adopts certain approaches which are not creative, and teachers don't have much option in that case. So they have to follow that. I think if they want, they can definitely follow. And I hope there are no agencies, central government or state mm, council for education, research, and training, which help these people do it. Right now, there are so many resources on the internet available, but one has to have motivation. The educators have to have motivation to look at that, adapt them to their own settings, and then respond to the questions posed by the community and the parents. Because it's a huge task to change from something novel. But once it is done, it is established. So if you look at the small schools, which are mostly international and high fee pay, they adopt all that. But it's nothing which cannot be done at a larger scale. But only thing you require a vision. Like all these schools had principals who started school not for making money, but for educating children and making the future of the country. And unfortunately, there are many players in this school system who come from background who invest a lot of money and they want a return on the investment. So it's become a financial proposition rather than academic proposition. And that is why people, in spite of make like in the initial, I said the grade become focused because that's only you can show. If you look at the honor board in the school, many school will say so many qualified for IIT. So many went for central institution. Nobody would say so many became creative writer. So many became explorer. So many became designer. You know. So unfortunately, that is valued in society. So everybody follows that path. But I think if people want to do it, they can definitely do it.
Professor, how do you envision the future of education in India? Do you see a shift towards holistic development over grades-based evolution?
Well, I am quite concerned about future of education in India. Education is supposed to be a vehicle for reducing inequality in society. But I am not sure if it is doing the same thing. There's a very interesting book called The Broken Ladder. Author has shown how this education, which was supposed to be ladder for social mobility upward, is broken. It is broken for people who don't have resources. So people who have resources can send their children to more expensive schools. Sometimes they provide better learning. Then they are able to make it better professional colleges and they do well. Now, it's not that the others who have not gone to school are not talented, but just because their parents cannot afford. So that is why if we envision education as a important vehicle for social equality, maybe 20, 30, 40 years down the line, we need to see that all education systems function in the best possible way. And if you look at again uh, Nordic countries and Finland or Scandinavian countries, or even many European countries like German, most education, 95% is in public domain. So anybody can access a school without paying any fee. Then, of course, there are other costs which people have to bear in our country that's far more relevant. But at least we can say, but now what is happening? We have a free education, but that education system is different. It's not as rich and as creative as some other schools. That's why I am concerned about it. That it is basically we are probably creating more inequality in society by this education. And I hope our policymakers, educators, do look at that. Right to education was one such initiative, but I am not sure what purpose it has achieved so far, because there are various loopholes and all people sometimes want to bypass. So it's a difficult situation. It's very difficult. It's not that we are not spending resources, but whether the resources are going into the right way to creating right kind of infrastructure, creating right kind of education leaders, that is something I'm very concerned about.
Professor, what advice would you give to parents, educators, and policymakers who are keen to foster a more balanced and student focused education system?
So this, I often have to respond to such questions. I say the parents are the well-wishers of children, and when they force children to take up certain stream, take up certain subject, a profession, they are, in the best of their knowledge, they are doing for the interest of the child, you know, that you become engineer, you become doctor, you become accountant, chartered accountant. So, but parents do not have enough resources to understand that what is education all about. Even if the child doesn't become engineer, he or she will have enough to earn his or her living. It's important that child earns his living or her living and remain happy, as compared to he makes lot of money but remains unhappy. So somehow we need to understand that money is not the primary cause of happiness. That discourse has dominated our society in India and otherwise. But now people are realizing that some of the best professionals, some of the highest earning people are not the happiest one. Who are the happiest one? Who derive pleasure from their work. Like I mentioned about cognitive versus non-cognitive. So these researchers suggest that people who have enough non-cognitive skills, which could be interpersonal or it could be intrapersonal. Interpersonal like curiosity, persistence, self-control, self-regulation. Interpersonal, which are listening, empathy, cooperation. So they work well independently, they develop resilience, and they work well in the groups. So once that happens, whatever situation, they can decide. They know what career to choose. If we allow the freedom and autonomy, there are enough resources, they can choose what they want to learn. They can know where they have to go. Many children, many students I know after 12th or after graduation take 1 year off, what they call gap year. And many parents find that they are wasting 1 year. That 1 year is most valuable when the child or a student is learning what he or she wants to be. So they identify, they travel, and they go to places and they do well. So I would say parents, educators, and policymakers, they need to identify, they need to work out solutions which provide more autonomy and freedom to children, which provide more resources to teachers and freedom to experiment. And as you know, innovate, fail, or succeed. Innovations, failure is a once precondition for the innovation, but after if 1% time they succeed, that becomes a treasure for them. And when policymakers allow this freedom to do it, they will learn. Not focus too much on examination, but focus on the process of learning, classroom prep, learning, classroom processes, providing resources so that they can learn in the classroom. And they become lifelong learner, not just learning for the examination. Examination measures only cognitive skills. There are a whole lot of skills and capability which are beyond the scope of examination. So that's how, if they are able to do that, probably we'll be better off.
Professor, my last question. For our listeners who may be aspiring educators, how can they contribute to transforming the current education model?
Well, it's a big challenge because we do not have enough resources in terms of educational institutions or libraries which can prepare future educators. So many teachers, many people, young people, I would say, would like to become educator, but firstly, it is lowly paid as compared to other professionals. Secondly, they get into a system which is not rewarding. So, for instance, many schools, they educate they train teachers themselves, especially international school, because there's no requirement of B.Ed. There are several very interesting programs which have been established in non-formal sector. One is Teach for India, where young graduates dedicate 1 or 2 years and work with the schools and also learn themselves. There is also a Cabal Education Foundation also takes young people. So future education, and I know several young people who have gone there, get inspired and found a career in education. So I would say they need to explore spaces which allows them to grow, because after graduation, a student is not fully equipped to become a teacher. They need to develop more, they need to learn more. And these places, fortunately, allow them to experiment. They also provide them basic stipend and learn. They are not perfect, but at least they allow you to be in the community where others are also doing same thing. So you learn a lot. And when you learn, then you find many of these people from Teach for India, Cabal Education Foundation, Gandhi Fellows, they have gone into their space and started their own enterprises, which is very inspiring. But in a country of 1.4 or so billion, we need 20 such institutions. Unfortunately, we do not have many, but at least there are some places where people can try and do. So I would say, look around, learn from people, go to things, experiment, try, fail, and succeed. That's the way to learn. We all learn like that. But they had need to learn that devoting 1 or 2 years is not a wastage. It's a very precious period of development and growth, which probably they didn't have enough when they were in schools, when they were young. So this might be a one way of doing it. I'm sure there might be other way which I do not know of.
Thank you, Professor Rajeev Sharma, for sharing your invaluable insights on the challenges and opportunities in modern education. Your perspectives on fostering holistic development while balancing academic excellence have been both inspiring and thought provoking. Your work, as detailed in Not Just Grades, Schools That Educate Differently, reminds us of the importance of innovative approaches to education and their potential to create meaningful, lasting change. We deeply appreciate the time and knowledge you have shared with us today, and I am sure our listeners have gained a wealth of ideas to reflect on. Thank you again for being a part of this episode on Business Talk.
Thank you, Deepak. It was very nice of you, and I thank you for inviting me to share this. This has been passion for me. I look forward to any listeners who would like to get connected with you or with me. Thank you once again, Deepak.
Thank you, Professor.